Eco Money on Money FM 89.3.
GE Vernova is the energy portfolio of GE. Now, it's been in the news recently because it listed at the beginning of April. The business trades on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker GEV, the former parent now known as GE Aerospace. In this episode of Eco Money, we're joined by Shailesh Mishra, who's the Regional Leader, Grid System Integration APAC at GE Vernova. We're going to discuss power grid continuity as the renewable energy pie is ramped up on the road to net zero. Shailesh, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Rachel, thank you so much.
Countries across the globe have announced their net zero targets. Singapore, of course, we've got the 2050 goal. Across Asia, it's a similar story as well. But what are some of the challenges in implementing these renewable energies across the region to meet these targets?
Great. Rachel, I am based in Singapore, and I work as a Asia Pacific leader for Grid Solution, the GSI business of Grid Solution. And I'm pretty well aware that what all is happening in and around our region, and particularly in Singapore. You talked about the challenges. Today, if I just look into some of the metrics or some of the numbers, 57% of energy globally is still produced with the fossil fuel or maybe the natural gases. It's only 40%, 43% is getting converted. These are the global numbers which I'm talking about, is now utilizing some of the resources which are renewable. So the biggest challenge today is that the conversion, how fast we can convert, because when you are installing the renewable resources, there are hydel plants which you can do, wind turbines which you can do solar plants, but all these takes time. They are the newer ways of generating energy, so a lot of research is happening. So the speed at which the install base is getting converted itself is a challenge. So that's number one. The second important challenge which I see when we talk about the renewable energy, it brings different challenges into the entire way the energy is being generated, transmitted, and then consumed. Just to give you a very broad example, think of a big solar plant which you have, and all of a sudden a cloud is covering that entire solar plant. Your generation will totally come down, right? And you have your consumers, they will not have electricity. So this is kind of a challenge. In the night, when sun is not there, you will have to depend upon the wind energy. So to handle these kind of challenges, there are products and solutions which are required. And that is what we do. Particularly when I talk about Asia and maybe say Singapore. So Singapore is having a scarcity of land, right? We are a small island. And here we can't have space for installing large solar plants or maybe say wind turbines. Either we can go into the sea for installing wind turbines, or we can transmit or we can import energy from large producers like Australia. Australia has got huge lands. Some of the countries, nearing countries like Malaysia, Thailand, they have hydro generation plants. So we can import that plant from there, that energy from there, which is made in the green way, right? So they can, if they are producing green energy, either in a solar or wind plant, then we can import that large power. To import this large power, you need different type of technology. And that is what this solution, etc., we provide via our company, GE Vernova.
Could you give us some examples of the solutions that you provide to help combat some of those challenges?
So one of the most important one is that gas turbines. First of all, we make gas turbines, and we are doing research to mix hydrogen into that. So the power generation which will happen will be a green power. So instead of using the natural gas, we will mix hydrogen, and hydrogen generated power will be available. I talked about the wind turbines. So we make wind turbines up to 15.617 gigawatt per turbine. And these turbines are installed either onshore on the ground, or they can be installed into the sea. Another important challenge which we face in energy is that energy cannot be stored. But as I was giving you an example, that in the night and maybe say when the clouds, etc. go, you need to store energy. And we provide storage solutions. So we have batteries wherein you can store energy, inverters, batteries, you can store energy. You cannot have the energy where exactly you need it. So for an example, in Singapore, you need energy consumption, whereas generation cannot happen. So you need super highways for this energy to be transmitted. And we make those super highways. So in Europe, for an example, in North Sea, South Sea, there are large power generation plants which are happening. And that power, when generated, can be transmitted through our HVDC solutions, which is high voltage DC transmission links. And then it can be brought to the onshore to the land, and then it can be utilized. There are other solutions also, which is when we use this electricity within the land for transmission. Because as I said, that if I go a little technical into that, it's like these power plants, which are solar and wind, they don't have inertia. And that inertia is needed in case of transmission space. So we make support equipment which can provide inertia, basically. These are the solutions. And over and above, this entire schematic happens with a lot of automation. You need to continuously know that what is happening, how much is the wind blowing, how much is the sun shining, what kind of generation happening, what is the utilization usage, how many vehicles are being charged at any point of time. So the entire energy space need to be monitored through automation. So we provide the large automation solutions to monitor and handle all that stuff.
And that's it, especially in somewhere like Singapore. We're not used to grid disruptions, are we? We're not used to having our energy supply, be intermittent at times. And that's why it's not as simple as it when you think about the role that renewable energy plays on the path to net zero. It's not simply a case of swapping something in and swapping something out, is it? There's so much more to it when you're looking at the grid infrastructure to ensure there's that stability and sustainability that we're all used to. You mentioned these superhighways. I like that analogy for transporting the energy, because many of us don't think about how the power gets to our light bulbs, our TVs, so that we can, watch Netflix or whatever. This is a really important conversation to talk about the energy transition, because often we think, oh yes, fossil fuels, let's just quickly swap it out. There's a long way to go, isn't there? How far do you think we are when it comes to renewable energies and the path to replacing or balancing out fossil fuels as we tread further towards that net zero target?
Rachel, you really understood the entire complexity of this thing. And as you rightly said, it's just not the swapping of one resource to the other resource. There are many other challenges which come. And that is where the entire speed sometimes gets kind of impacted, because the moment you are thinking about these newer technologies to be implemented at the same level of stability, reliability, affordability, you need to do a lot of research, you need to do a lot of invention. If I can just recall, maybe say 10 years back, when we were producing solar power, the cost of solar power was almost like 15, 20 times what it has come down today. So I can provide a solution, but that solution need to be affordable as well. So that is where the speed had been kind of, I would say, not impacted, but had been a little slow. But today we have moved significantly. I think as I said that in terms of power generation, we are closely moving towards 40% of power generation globally onto the renewable resources. Asia, particularly, if I talk about, they are still behind. We are 30% only is being generated. So there's a large amount of work is still pending. And over and above, the moment we embark into a concept where the complete net zero is obtained, or maybe say entire energy landscape is changed onto the new energy or green energy, we don't know that what kind of problems will also evolve. So it's an evolution, I would say. And we have seen that some of the countries like Germany, Poland, etc., who have moved significantly into the green space or green generation, they are facing newer challenges, and we continue to work on those challenges, understand that what kind of problems are evolving, happening, and how do we solve them. So this is where I see time which we need to take in terms of solving these problems.
Okay. How far would you say we are when it comes to renewable energy implementation for the region, and what more needs to be done?
If I just bifurcate the entire region into smaller spaces,
of course,
for an example, maybe make a little more clearer, like Japan. Japan has already embarked into offshore wind. They've done 2 auctions. There are some, so I would say around 10 to 20% is already into that. Japan is also, after Fukushima, which happened, so they are kind of completely banning the nuclear. And this is another debate which is happening globally, right? So whether we want to go into nuclear or to stay with renewable. Korea has largely gone into significant ramping up of into green energy. Taiwan, for an example, has also significantly ramped up their large generation is happening on all offshore wind and renewable. But some geographies within Asia, like I would say India and China, they are still behind. They are still using coal or more natural gases. Some of the geographies like Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore. Singapore, in fact, is largely onto the for natural gas. So they are still trying to kind of improvise. Natural gas is the cleanest form of fossil fuel generation, but still it is contributing into the greenhouse gases. So I would say, largely speaking, within the region in Asia, we are in the range of 30-35%. We have gone into the green space. And this is only the generation or energy landscape I'm talking about. There are other initiatives like vehicular pollution, which also contributes into our green gases generation. So there are another significant steps are required to be taken. People are moving into that direction. Governments are taking initiatives, and we are moving into that direction. Another important thing which comes to my mind when I talk about the energy landscape is that there are a couple of gases which are utilized in the equipment which we make and we install for energy transportation or superhighways. And we have been doing a lot of research in that. And we have now come up with a gas, which is a green gas, which can actually replace the SF6, which is one of the most harmful gas when it is when it goes into the atmosphere and creates problem for carbon dioxide increase, or maybe say temperature rise onto the earth. So we've been able to now replace it with green gas. I think that will fast track further the entire effort which we're doing to make the cleaner planet.
What is the green gas that you've been able to replace it with?
So green gas is a combination of multiple gases, which are environmental friendly gases. And if they are released into the atmosphere, they will not deplete the ozone layer, because SF6 is basically utilized for insulation of the high voltage equipments. When you must have seen those long towers and transmission lines. When it is in the air, you need to have a space between two lines, right? But when you want to make it compact for places where which are not having that kind of a space, then you compact it and you fill it with some gases, which will create the insulation between those two lines.
And with that, you mentioned nuclear. There have been a lot of interesting discussions around nuclear, but I'm interested to get your perspective on how you see the renewable energy landscape evolving in the next, I guess, 3 to 5 years. So
the next 5 to 10 years, I think the landscape of energy, one is that definitely the small, medium nuclear reactors that can evolve. The countries which are actually embarking onto that journey can help. Then the large thing will also happen. See, gas will not completely go away. The natural gas will still stay. But the hydrogen blending into the gas will definitely solve the purpose in a larger way. So I would say there will be a significant thirst into that kind of generation. And you see that today people are talking about a lot of hydrogen generation. So what will happen is that near the sea, where there is a offshore wind plant is there, the hydrogen plants will be built. Hydrogen will be manufactured there, and through vessel that hydrogen will be transmitted to the land or to the places where the gas turbines are there, and then we can generate power with that. And the third thing which will grow significantly is the wind. I see that also growing significantly, because the size of wind machine, which used to be earlier a smaller size, 2 gigawatt, 3 gigawatt, has gone up to 15, 16 gigawatt now. So one machine can generate that kind of power. The wind blades which are being produced are much larger, and though it's complex to build those type of plants, but that will significantly increase the power generation into the wind. Some countries, for an example, like India, and I know that they had been talking about installing large solar plants in the Himalayas, right? Because they have huge space, deserts where they can install these solar plants. So I would say significantly these will improve. Apart from this, there are some discussions which are happening in the space of geothermal as well. What is
even
geothermal?
In Singapore?
Yeah, even in Singapore as well. So So this geothermal is another interesting thing. Geothermal, if that can become a commercially viable solution, and again, at the cost of repeating, I would say affordability, reliability, and sustainability. You can produce power, but it has to be affordable. You need to be able to use it, right? So if geothermal grows in that direction, and if there are some breakthrough technologies which evolve and which come forward, then probably that will also, I see that particularly growing as an important contributor into the power generation and energy space.
Wonderful. Well, Shailesh, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Rachel, thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you.
We've been speaking with Shailesh Mishra, Regional Leader, Grid System Integration APAC at GE Vernova. I'm Rachel Kelly, and you've been listening to Eco Money on Money FM 89.3.